Let's go to Charlie Wiggs now with Mozito. Charlie is General Manager and SVP of U.S. Markets for Mozito. In this capacity, he's responsible for P&L, operations, business development in North America, as well as managing relationships with major clients. Mozito is a cloud provider of financial and marketing services with a heavy emphasis on creating consumer engagement for enterprise customers and providing affordable financial services for self-bank customers. Charlie's background is as a leader in mobile commerce includes his experience with 3CI, where he led mobile marketing programs for Walgreens, Best Buy, Cracker Barrel, and ESPN. Prior to joining Mozito, Charlie was Vice President of Business Development for SK CNC's mobile commerce unit Corefire, where he was responsible for developing and executing the company's sales and marketing development strategy for financial institutions, retailers, and mobile network operators. He's worked in the wireless industry with Tachyon Networks and started his career developing retail and CPG strategies for MCI. Charlie.
Thanks, Thad. So 2014, Raphael, you said every year has been a little bit of a disappointment. So when I look at 2014 and I look at mobile payments, I think of a couple things. Number one, growth. All right, I think we're going to continue to see enterprises who see mobile in all aspects of mobile as a way to create engagement with consumers, and payments is a part of that. So you're going to continue to see growth. But it's also a very fragmented market. So I don't know that 2014 is the year of mobile payments and we're really going to see mass adoption, because it's a fragmented market. So the goals of everybody that are in the ecosystem, especially here in the U.S., were a little different. So what the banks want to achieve with mobile payments and what the merchants want to achieve with mobile payments and what the networks want to achieve, are sometimes in conflict. So I think what we'll see in 2014 is a continuation, because it's so important to own that relationship with your consumer through that mobile device that's so precious to them, of proprietary systems. So, who are the big early adopters and who have the most consumers using mobile payments today? Starbucks, right? So they aren't doing NFC, they're doing stored value cards or gift cards, right? You look at Dunkin' Brands, over 4.5 million downloads. So I think you're going to continue to see certain enterprises pick a proprietary method that they can create engagement with their consumers and try and build a relationship with that consumer, and payments is a big part of that. And then the driver, I think, in 2014 is going to be value-add services. And it's always been a driver, but I'll give you an example. We're working with Dairy Queen, well-known brand, right? Started out as a project to develop a mobile payment program for Dairy Queen, and quickly became a mobile loyalty program, or a loyalty program, and not just focused on payments. So I think 2014 will continue to be a year where you see rapid growth and consumer adoption in mobile. I don't know if it's the big year. I think 2015 maybe is the year where there's more standardization and more ubiquity, enabling, I think, even greater growth in mobile payments. So it's going to be a big year, right? You're going to continue to see enterprises and municipal governments embrace it, but I don't know if it's the year, mobile payments.
Thank you, sir. Okay, Cherian Abraham. Mobile Commerce and Payments Lead at Experian's global consulting practice. Cherian serves Experian's global clients in banking, retail, consumer credit, and payments on strategy, innovation, and emerging business models around mobile. He's an affiliate analyst with the Yankee Group, focused on mobile marketing and commerce strategies, and he's on the board of advisors for Moto Payments, a mobile payments platform, and Simply Tap, who incorporated host card emulation into Android KitKat, and we might be talking a little bit about that later on. Prior to Experian, Cherian, that rhymes, that's kind of fun, founded Drop Labs, a mobile strategy and advisory practice, and served clients such as Universal Orlando and Fifth Third Bank Corp. Cherian serves as on the editorial board at eFinance and Payments Law Policy, a UK-based legal journal, and continues to blog at Drop Labs. Cherian.
Thanks, Ted. So if I were you, I would take everything that's being said today with a big grain of salt, because you all know we would love to be back here end of 2014 and tell you the same thing all over again, that this space matters, right? Because we get paid for it. In terms of what 2014 will be, I think it will be a lot more chaos, and I don't think anybody can prevent that because the system as such is wholly inefficient, and the stakeholders all have their own reasons as to keep it inefficient, and a lot of that has to do with primarily the lack of it, or the amount of inertia that's in the system. But where you will see innovation is around the edges, is where payments actually intersect with people. And you'll start seeing that because that's where it's easy for startups, and you may have seen a bunch of them, Uber and others, who have the ability to innovate. And that's where customers actually care about payments, is when payments actually become invisible and go away from our merchant customer interactions. That's where I think 2014 is going to be more about, is where we will not see payments as we do today. And even around the interactions which requires payments, you'll start seeing more services aggregating. So for example, today, you have, if you've used Uber, you know that you don't really pay the driver, because really that's never part of the journey. Tomorrow, you could have other services aggregate Uber, which means payment will go even deeper. So you'll start seeing more innovation around services and startups who start aggregating payments into other utilities, and you'll start seeing more innovation around the edges of the network, not so much within the network. At least that's what I believe.
Thank you, Cherian. Okay, Philip Andreae, Director of Field Marketing Payment North America at Oberthur, providing an in-depth understanding of EMV and what it takes to introduce EMV in the U.S. He supports all of Oberthur Technologies' EMV business development efforts and complements and further expands and defines the company's EMV offers in order to meet new requirements emerging in the U.S. For the last 20 years, Philip has been actively involved in the payment industry and the evolution of EMV. He was at Europay International and was the executive responsible for driving the creation of the consortium that developed the EMV spec. At Visa Canada, Philip was a primary catalyst in the country's migration to EMV, and he helped define American Express's global acquiring and issue of EMV contact, contactless, and mobile strategies, and provided management consulting and subject matter expertise in the fields of EMV, mobile, and card payments at Accenture. Philip successfully operated as a strategic consultant in both Europe and North America, and has worked with clients such as AT&T, Canadian Tire, Lowe's, Verifone, and IBM. Philip.
Thank you, Thad. What he forgot to mention is at one point in time, Thad was one of my clients when he was with a prior organization, and we were consulting to a group here, and I'm dating myself back to 1997 when Thad and I worked specifically on a mobile payment strategy as we were looking at helping a major brand here in the Atlanta marketplace figure out how to deal with the vending machine. I've played with mobile payments from probably about 1996 and been playing in payments actually since 1976 when I was involved with National Data Corporation. And what's interesting is almost every year we have a panel just like this that's talking about something that's happening in mobile payments that is disruptive. And we look at the number of companies that have emerged playing in the payments field, and we ask the question, how many of them still survive? And there is one, a big guy, PayPal, that was there back in 1994, is still there, was a major disruptor. We then talk about this interesting phenomena that you've got bankers on one side of the table, and you've got telecom operators on the other side of the table, and you've got merchants sitting somewhere in the middle, and hopefully somewhere in that conversation is the consumer. And the telecom operator wants a piece of the pie, the banker wants to hold on to a piece of the pie, the merchant wants to give up paying for the pie, and the consumer's wondering, what about me? And we have this struggle. And it was interesting, back in 1993, we were talking about something called the World Wide Web. I think we all know it as the internet today, or e-commerce, or online, as some people like to talk about it. And I remember a word called disintermediation. The telecom operators were going to disintermediate the banks. And then you ask the question, from what? And it was from the consumer relationship. It wasn't from the act of payment. It was from the relationship that a bank had with the consumer. And as we look at what's happening right now with mobile payments, we look at what Uber is doing and what others are doing, what they want to do is they want to push payments into the background so that the focus of the relationship is between the consumer and the retailer, the consumer and the telecom operator, and that entity that does the payment stuff, those rails that Thad talked about that are really so stable and so rich and really work really well, let's make those disappear so that they're part of the ubiquity that makes the world operate. The one method of payment that Thad forgot about when he mentioned coins, etc., was something called barter. We still have barter in the marketplace, and one of the things I think we're going to find more of is people are bartering for a piece of the pie. And one of the things I think we're going to see in 2014 is we're going to actually get people down to the table, and they're going to start talking about what's equitable between the various players. I'm a card manufacturer today, and I look at the economics of payments. And as Thad mentioned, I'm responsible for driving EMV. What I'm really responsible for is multiplying the cost of the card by 5. And then we think about a mobile phone. We're going to now multiply the cost of the card by 5 plus the cost of renting space on a secure element in the phone, plus the cost of enabling that secure element on the phone. Typically something like times 2 times 2. And you're sitting at the banker and he's going, well, wait a second. Am I getting an uplift? Is the consumer going to spend more money? How am I going to pay for this? And the merchant's sitting there going, well, wait a second. If it's going to cost the issuer more, I know what he's going to do. He's going to increase interchange. And that means I'm going to have to pay more. And you begin to wonder, how does this all come into balance? I think 2014 is the year we're going to see those things coming into balance. I think the other thing we're going to see in 2014 is a recognition that mobile payments isn't the game. It's mobile commerce. It's that engagement through the entire sales cycle, with payments being the last step.
Thank you, sir. Both Philip and Cherian mentioned the idea of the payment vanishing, and I'd like to give you a vision that you can kind of put in your head and think about. I'm sure you've all watched Star Trek. Some of us have watched it more than others, but you've all watched Star Trek. And if you'll notice in Star Trek, nobody ever pays for anything ever. Okay? And that's even though that they're Ferengi there and all they do is buy and sell stuff. But nobody pays for anything. Okay? That's the vision of payments. Okay, there's stuff being moved around, there's money being exchanged, there's value going everywhere, but nobody does anything about it. It just happens. And I think that's kind of the vision. So, and one other point about mobile commerce, there's two kinds of mobile commerce, one of which is exploding as we speak, which is buying stuff on your smartphone online. Okay, which is mobile commerce, and it's huge, and it's growing even more quickly. But what we want to spend our time today talking about is mobile commerce in the physical location. So my first question for our panel is, what is the single biggest roadblock in using a mobile device to make purchases in store?
I'll summarize it very quickly. In America, in the US especially, it's the infrastructure. So contactless readers being available, it's obviously growing, but compared to other markets, it's actually quite low penetration.
Charlie?
So this is probably one that most of us will, agree on. In store, it's merchant acceptance, right? So if I load a stored value card, a gift card, and it's a Starbucks card, I can't use that anywhere else, right? So how do I get ubiquity of payment? It's driven by merchant acceptance. So, as you look at it, trying to find a common standard for mobile payments has got to be a goal of all organizations, but there isn't one today.
True. I'll go in a different angle. I think the reason that it hasn't taken off is because there are not enough interesting use cases. Nobody, I don't think any one of you actually wants to take your phone and tap and pay at the till, or use a barcode to pay for something at the till. What you really want is that phone to enable your current purchase interaction, whatever you have with the merchant today, whether that's buying a cup of coffee, ordering ahead at, let's say, at Chipotle, they want to make that, you want somebody to make that simple so that the food is ready when you get there, or that the amount of time it takes for you to get that, whatever you bought, shorter and cheaper. So we don't have enough interesting use cases. So the reason we don't have enough interesting use cases is that merchants are still getting their arms around mobile as a platform and really using that to engage with their customers. They are hamstrung because of the inadequacies within the payment system today. But if you separate the inadequacies of the payment system from what the merchants are trying to do, I think you'll start seeing customers get warmed up more towards doing things differently using their phone. Don't look at the phone as merely a replacement of a credit card. You look at it as a medium through which you can do things that you cannot do today in a variety of retail scenarios. I think that's where the power really comes through. And you'll start seeing those use cases emerge as we go by.
I think this is probably the one that we all want to say something about. I like to separate mobile payments from mobile commerce. And if I isolate the world down to mobile payments, I think it's all about the ROI. Show the merchant that it's going to cost him less and he's going to make more and he'll invest. And I don't think we've proven with mobile payments all by itself that we're going to increase revenue. I do think it's about mobile commerce, and I think my colleague right next door has told the story. Make that more engaging. Get the person to put more in the cart, which is all about selling. And that's what the mobile platform will do.